The ground beef you cook for your family every week might not be what you think it is. You see a simple package on the shelf, but behind it is an industry controlled by a handful of corporations, shaped by recalls, hidden processing methods, and practices most shoppers never hear about. What looks like ordinary ground beef can come from a system that prioritizes scale over transparency. In this video, we're exposing the ground beef brands you should think twice about, and the few that are actually worth buying. Number 9. Trader Joe's Organic Ground Beef. Trader Joe's built a cult following on quirky branding and affordable organic options. Their organic ground beef promises clean eating at around $7.50 to $8 per pound. It sounds like a win. Then you open the package. The texture is paste-like when raw and tough and chewy when cooked. It does not crumble the way ground beef should. It stays in stubborn clumps regardless of how long it sits on the heat. Customers report finding gristle, tendons, bone fragments, and in multiple documented cases, actual cowhide with fur still attached inside the package. Reviews describe the taste as wrong in a way that is difficult to fully explain. Comparisons to horse meat appear repeatedly, fishy and gamey flavors that no amount of seasoning fixes. The beef does not brown correctly either, staying pinkish even at high heat, while simultaneously releasing excessive fat into the pan. Here is why that happens. Trader Joe's sources this beef internationally, primarily from Uruguay, to keep costs down while maintaining the organic label. That global supply chain creates quality control failures they cannot manage at scale. When organic certification is applied to beef sourced from countries with different inspection standards and transported across hemispheres, before it reaches your skillet, the certification starts to mean very little. You are paying $8 a pound for a product whose customer reviews read like incident reports. One reviewer wrote cowhide with fur and everything. Another wrote I actually vomited. A third wrote ground up wildebeest. At that price point, with that track record, the Trader Joe's organic label is not protecting you. It is just expensive packaging around a supply chain problem the brand has no incentive to fix. Number 8. Costco Kirkland Signature Ground Beef. Costco enjoys a powerful reputation for quality and value. The Kirkland Signature brand reinforces that reputation across hundreds of product categories. Ground beef is where that reputation runs into serious problems. The organic Kirkland Signature ground beef comes in 4-pound packages at over $7 per pound. It has been over-processed to the point where the texture becomes paste-like and mushy before it even hits the pan. Customers consistently describe cooked Kirkland organic as having a hard texture despite proper cooking simultaneously. Greasy and tough in a combination that should not be physically possible. Excessive fat renders out during cooking and leaves the pan swimming in grease while the meat itself turns dry. One customer documented finding larvae-like material inside the package. At $7+ per pound, that is not a premium experience. It is an expensive disappointment. The non-organic Kirkland comes in 6 to 7 pound packages at around $6.21 per pound in an 88 to 12 lean to fat ratio. That ratio is the central problem. Most cooking experts recommend 80-20 or 85-15 for burgers and most applications. 88-12 is too lean for flavor. Fat carries taste. Reducing it to 12% produces beef that is dry, crumbly, and bland. Costco also offers a 93-7 ultra-lean ratio that compounds the problem further. The bulk packaging tears easily and leaks in your cart. Shrinkage during cooking runs between 20 and 25%, meaning your $6 pound effectively becomes $8 after it hits the pan. Costco's industrial scale destroys whatever quality advantage organic certification provides. Multiple sourcing locations create consistency problems that bulk processing cannot solve. When your beef arrives paste-like and your organic beef cooks up greasy and tough, paying the Kirkland premium is not delivering on the Kirkland promise. Number 7. Tyson Foods. Tyson Foods is one of the most recognizable names in American meat. The Tyson brand appears on ground beef packages in grocery stores across the country. The company is also one of the big four processors now under a Department of Justice investigation, directed by the Trump administration for potential price fixing and market manipulation. In November 2025, the White House directed the DOJ to investigate Tyson, JBS, Cargill, and National Beef for potential collusion in the beef market. The administration stated that these four companies had driven up prices at the grocery store while simultaneously squeezing American cattle producers, effectively profiting at both ends of the supply chain. Civil antitrust lawsuits making the same allegation had been working through the courts for years before the federal directive arrived. Tyson's antibiotic transparency record is consistent with its Big Four peers. Despite sustained pressure from public health advocates and nutrition researchers, Tyson has not halted routine antibiotic use across its beef feedlots and does not disclose the total volume of medically important antibiotics used in its cattle supply chain annually. There are no published targets. There is no third-party verification. The company tells consumers the beef is safe and USDA approved and leaves the broader questions unanswered. Then there is the lean, finely textured beef history. Tyson was one of the three primary producers of the product, which is made from beef trimmings heated to separate fat from lean tissue, then treated with ammonium hydroxide gas to kill pathogens. A USDA microbiologist called it pink slime in an internal email in 2002. By 2012, according to ABC News reporting, the product was present in approximately 70% of ground beef sold at American supermarkets. Trimmings that were once processed into dog food and cooking oil were being compressed into frozen blocks and mixed into beef sold to families and school cafeterias without any labeling requirement. Tyson told customers it would accommodate those who preferred products without it, but the product had been going into the supply chain for years without any disclosure that it was there. Before we get to the top four, if this video is opening your eyes to what is actually behind the packaging in your shopping cart, subscribe right now. We do this kind of investigation every week, and what is coming next is going to change how you shop. Number 6. National Beef Packing Company. National Beef Packing Company is one of four corporations that together control approximately 85% of the United States beef processing market. Their name does not appear prominently in grocery stores. That invisibility is the point. Here is what National Beef has publicly committed to regarding antibiotic use in its cattle. Nothing. According to the Chain Reaction Report, which evaluates major meat producers on antibiotic stewardship policies, National Beef has made no public commitment to reduce antibiotic use across its feedlots. They have not committed to tracking the antibiotics used in their cattle supply chain. They have not committed to ending the preventive use of antibiotics on animals that are not sick. They have not published any data on how many pounds of medically important antibiotics move through their operations in a given year. There is no public-facing policy, no published targets, and no external verification of any kind. This is not a minor administrative gap. The World Health Organization has identified antimicrobial resistance as one of the most urgent threats to global public health. When cattle are given antibiotics routinely on industrial feedlots, including on healthy animals, purely to prevent infection in overcrowded conditions or to accelerate weight gain, it accelerates the development of bacteria that no longer respond to the drugs doctors rely on to treat serious infections in people. The FDA acknowledges that approximately 80% of all antibiotics consumed in the United States are administered to farm animals rather than humans. National Beef controls a substantial portion of the national beef supply without disclosing how it manages drugs that are central to human medicine. The cattle producing your ground beef may have been treated with antibiotics that affect your health in ways that have nothing to do with whether the meat itself is contaminated. Antibiotic resistance travels invisibly through the population, and the companies building it are under no legal obligation to tell you they are doing it. Number 5. Kroger. Kroger is the largest supermarket chain in the United States by revenue. Their store brand ground beef is among the most purchased products of its kind in the country. Until the 2012 consumer backlash forced the issue, Kroger was selling ground beef that contained lean, finely textured beef, the same ammonia-treated trimming product discussed in the previous entry. When the ABC News investigation revealed that 70% of American ground beef contained the product, Kroger announced it would eliminate it from its meat section. Kroger representatives stated that the product was USDA regulated, approved for food safety, and that their decision to remove it was a response to customer concerns rather than a safety judgment. Pause on that for a moment. The largest supermarket chain in the country was selling beef products containing ammonium hydroxide treated meat trimmings to its customers without any label disclosing what was inside the packaging. The parts of the animal most susceptible to fecal contamination, the scraps once destined for dog food, were being processed into the ground beef families were buying for dinner. Kroger's legal position was that it was safe. The position that became impossible to maintain was that customers had no right to know it was happening. Kroger has also been named in civil antitrust litigation connected to the Big Four processors. The allegations are that the major meat packers coordinated to suppress the prices paid to cattle ranchers while maintaining elevated retail beef prices, extracting from both ends of the transaction. As one of the primary retail distributors for those same packers, Kroger sits directly inside the supply structure currently under federal scrutiny. The store brand package on the shelf is designed to feel uncomplicated. The industrial supply chain behind it is something else entirely. Before we get to the top 4, if this video is opening your eyes to what is actually behind the packaging in your shopping cart, subscribe to this channel right now. We investigate the products and supply chains that corporations hope you never question, and what comes next is going to stay with you. Number 4. Cargill. Cargill is the largest privately held company in the United States. In 2019, the environmental advocacy group Mighty Earth named it the worst company in the world. A company can hold both distinctions simultaneously when it is large enough and private enough to operate without the scrutiny that public markets force onto other corporations. In May 2024, Cargill Meat Solutions recalled approximately 16,243 pounds of raw ground beef from its Hazleton, Pennsylvania facility due to possible contamination with E. coli 0157H7. The recalled products included packages sold at Walmart locations nationwide, with establishment number EST-86-P printed on the label. This was a retail recall affecting supermarket shelves and ordinary family shopping trips. That same year, the Bureau of Investigative Journalism published research showing that farms supplying Cargill were using 12 different antibiotics, including 2 classified as highest priority, critically important antibiotics, the specific drugs the World Health Organization has explicitly warned livestock farmers to stop using because they are among the last effective treatments available for serious bacterial infections in people. Cargill stated there was no evidence that beef with excessive antibiotic residues had entered the food chain. The Bureau's data, drawn from official testing records over a 2-year period, contradicted that position. Cargill was also one of the 3 primary producers of lean, finely textured beef. A 2009 New York Times investigation by journalist Michael Moss, which would later win a Pulitzer Prize, documented how Cargill's own operational failures contributed to a 2007 E. coli outbreak linked to its production. Cargill uses citric acid in its trimming process rather than ammonium hydroxide, but the underlying model, taking the scraps most vulnerable to contamination and processing them into bulk ground beef at an industrial scale, was identical across the industry. Mighty Earth's characterization of Cargill as the worst company in the world was based on documented environmental destruction, allegations of profiting from child labor in cocoa supply chains, and a ranking among the top 10 food industry polluters in the United States for lead, asbestos, and mercury contamination. The beef you pick up under your grocery store's house brand may have been produced by this company without you ever knowing it. Number 3. Swift. The beef in. That Swift package at your supermarket is produced by JBS, the largest meat packer on the planet. They process more than 76,000 cattle per day. Their beef supplies McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, Pizza Hut, and Outback Steakhouse, according to JBS's own published annual report. In 2017, JBS paid a record fine of $3.2 billion to Brazilian authorities. The fine covered years of paying bribes to government officials to overlook violations, including the sale of rotten meat, falsified export documentation, and the operation of meat processing facilities that did not meet basic safety standards. The scandal, known in Brazil as Operation Weak Flesh, resulted in the arrest of JBS executives, including members of the founding Batista family. Hundreds of politicians and regulatory officials were implicated. JBS explicitly permits the preventive use of antibiotics in its beef, meaning it allows the administration of antibiotics to animals that are not sick, purely to prevent infection in the crowded feedlot conditions where the animals are raised. JBS mandates that its suppliers track antibiotic use, but does not require that suppliers share that tracking data with JBS. The company does not publish specific figures on how many pounds of medically important antibiotics flow through its supply chain each year. Amnesty International reported in 2020 that JBS continued to source from farms illegally logging the Amazon rainforest. Mighty Earth calculated that JBS's supply chain was responsible for 42,538 hectares of Brazilian deforestation. That area is roughly half the size of New York City, cleared to support cattle operations supplying the world's largest meat packer. JBS has paid more than $160 million to settle antitrust price-fixing claims, while denying wrongdoing. McDonald's itself joined lawsuits alleging a long-running supply price conspiracy. The Swift package at your supermarket and the patty in your restaurant meal almost certainly passed through this company's hands. Number 2. Walmart Great Value Ground Beef. You see it in the refrigerated aisle at every Walmart in the country. Great Value Ground Beef. It is one of the cheapest options on the shelf. There is a specific reason it is that cheap, and it is not Walmart's generosity toward shoppers. In May 2024, ground beef sold at Walmart stores nationwide was recalled due to possible contamination with E. coli 0157H7. The products were produced by Cargill at its Hazleton, Pennsylvania facility on April 26th and 27th, 2024. The recalled packages carried the establishment number EST86P inside the USDA mark of inspection. Walmart advised customers not to consume the product, though the USDA noted no illnesses had been confirmed at the time of the announcement. The gap between a product reaching store shelves and a recall being announced is always the period where the actual exposure happens. Before the 2012 controversy forced the industry's hand, Walmart was selling ground beef that contained lean, finely textured beef, the ammonia-treated trimming product that comes from the parts of the animal most vulnerable to fecal contamination. When consumer pressure mounted and the issue became commercially dangerous, Walmart announced it would begin offering alternatives. Its initial statement stopped short of eliminating all lean, finely textured beef from its shelves entirely. It offered customers a choice. That choice depended on customers knowing the question existed in the first place, which in turn depended on media coverage Walmart had no control over. Great Value ground beef does not come from a dedicated Walmart production facility. It comes from the same Big Four industrial supply chain currently under federal antitrust investigation. Cargill and Tyson are the primary processors behind the Great Value label. The low number on the price tag reflects a supply system built on volume processing, feedlot antibiotic use, compressed rancher margins, and the transparency failures that define every major company in this countdown. Number 1. Target Good and Gather ground beef. Target launched the Good and Gather brand to compete in the grocery wars, bringing their design-forward aesthetic to everything from pasta to protein. The branding is clean. The packaging is attractive. The ground beef is where the retail magic stops working. Consistently ranked among the bottom tier by meat quality analysts, Target's Good and Gather ground beef sits at $5 to $6 per pound for what amounts to generic commodity beef with nothing to distinguish it from significantly cheaper alternatives. The texture falls into acceptable but forgettable territory. The taste is bland in a way that requires aggressive seasoning just to register as something worth eating. Multiple reports cite hygiene concerns in Target meat departments, with products sitting longer than they should before being pulled. The pricing is the most honest problem. At $5 to $6 per pound, you are paying the same or more than considerably better options available at Aldi or Costco. The Good and Gather label implies a standard that the sourcing does not back up. Target treats their grocery section as an afterthought to their core retail business, and the ground beef quality reflects exactly that priority level. When a brand charges mid-range prices for bottom-range quality, it is making a calculated bet that most shoppers will not buy it twice, but enough new ones will pick it up on impulse to keep the numbers working. Target nails home goods and seasonal decor. Their ground beef proves that a well-designed label is not a substitute for actually caring about what goes inside the package. The good news is, not every ground beef option comes from this system. Some are really worth consuming and will give you value for your money, like these brands. Number 1. Aldi ground beef. Aldi built their reputation on delivering surprising quality at prices that embarrass competitors, and their ground beef represents that model working exactly as intended when quality control cooperates. The grass-fed organic frequently costs the same as conventional at $4.29 to $5 per pound when on sale, which is almost insulting to brands charging $7 to $12 for inferior product. At peak quality, you get grass-fed beef with deep, pinkish red color reflecting genuine freshness. The texture breaks apart easily, maintains good structure, and browns beautifully without excessive grease. The taste is savory and beefy. When compared directly to Trader Joe's grass-fed at twice the price, Aldi wins decisively. The one honest caveat is inconsistency. Some batches have drawn complaints about off smells and poor texture. When Aldi beef is good, it is genuinely impressive. The quality varies enough that it cannot be rated above the next two options, but at that price, even accounting for the occasional disappointing batch, the value proposition is difficult to beat. Number 2. Laura's Lean Beef. Laura's Lean positions itself as the option for health-conscious consumers who want cleaner beef without paying Whole Foods prices. Available in 96 to 4, 92 to 8, and 85 to 15 ratios at $5.99 to $7 per pound, the brand delivers on its promises in a way that most of this list does not. No hormones, no antibiotics, vegetarian-fed cattle, heart checks certified by the American Heart Association. What separates Laura's from other brands making similar claims is that the quality actually shows up on the plate. The cattle graze on grass and forages for the majority of their lives before being finished on grain, which gives the beef a cleaner flavor profile than conventional feedlot options without the gamey edge that grass-finished beef sometimes carries. The texture maintains integrity despite the leanness. The 92 to 8 ratio browns well and breaks apart easily. Customers consistently describe the taste as genuinely beefy, comparing it to the quality of homegrown beef. Shrinkage is minimal compared to conventional options. Customer reviews average 4.5 out of 5 stars with consistent quality reported over years. Laura's fills the gap between conventional commodity beef and expensive organic options without requiring you to compromise on either price or quality. Number 3. ButcherBox. ButcherBox delivers 100% grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef in an 85 to 15 ratio directly to your door at approximately $7 per pound through subscription. Sourced exclusively from the United States, Australia, and Canada, with complete supply chain traceability and strict no antibiotics, no added hormone standards. This is what ground beef should look like when quality is the actual priority. Individually vacuum-sealed 1-pound packages arrive frozen, maintaining peak freshness. The texture defies typical grass-fed expectations, with fat marbling that creates juiciness rare in grass-fed options. It browns beautifully with minimal shrinkage. Customer reviews are overwhelmingly positive. You know where your beef came from. The subscription model eliminates grocery store guesswork entirely and keeps your freezer stocked with product whose supply chain you can actually verify. When grass-fed beef arrives at your door with better texture, superior taste, and full traceability for the same price you would pay for mystery meat at most premium retailers, someone has genuinely solved the problem. For most of us, ground beef is a core part of our meals, so it's important you get what's healthy and quality. Here are a few checks to run before you buy. Ground beef. Look for the establishment number inside the USDA mark of inspection on the package. That number identifies the specific processing facility. You can search it in the USDA Food Safety and Inspection Service database, which is publicly available, to see whether that facility has a documented history of recalls, contamination events, and public health alerts. Check whether the brand is a retailer's private label. Great value. Kroger brand and equivalent store brand products are produced by the Big Four processors, currently under federal antitrust investigation. The store brand packaging does not change who produced the beef or the practices behind it. Look for the USDA establishment number on the package and cross-reference it against the FSIS recall database at fsis.usda.gov. That search takes 30 seconds and tells you more about the beef safety history than anything printed on the front of the label. Ignore farm names and pastoral imagery unless the brand publishes verifiable sourcing information to back them up. A name that sounds rural is a marketing decision, not a guarantee of how the cattle were raised. Check for the USDA organic seal if you want verified assurance on antibiotics and hormones. Do not trust all natural, hormone-free or premium without certification supporting the claim. All natural has no regulatory definition in the context of how animals were raised. Watch the fat ratio. 80-20 is the standard for good reason. Anything leaner than that starts sacrificing flavor for a leanness claim that sounds better than it tastes. And watch the shrinkage. If your ground beef is losing more than 20% of its weight in the pan, what you are cooking off is excess water added during processing, not natural cooking moisture. So now you have the information. If this video helped you understand what is really behind the packaging, share it with someone who buys ground beef regularly. They deserve to know. Subscribe to stay ahead of what we cover next, and drop a comment telling us which of these brands you found in your kitchen.